This is a really big treat here at E3 2017. I've got Nogami-san and Sato-san. These two gentlemen worked on Splatoon, and they're bringing us Splatoon 2 very soon. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And it's nice to meet you both. My first question is, were you surprised by the success of the original Splatoon when it came out for the Wii U?
Yeah, I would say that we were, fairly confident while we were working on a game that we were making something interesting. But you never know until you release it into the wild, and we were really pleased, and the response from the fans exceeded our expectation.
Tell me a little bit about the process of developing the characters for Splatoon, because they are now part of the Nintendo pantheon. There are so many great characters in this universe of Nintendo, but your characters are now sitting alongside a lot of these greats out there.
Well, I think it's important to say that when we go about making a new game, we don't think, from the character standpoint first, we actually think about what type of gameplay would be fun. And so then when we begin building prototypes for these games. For this game in particular, we knew that we wanted to make something where you shot ink at each other and competed for turf in some way. And so once we had that concept, we knew we needed to add some actions to it. So for example, diving into the ink, climbing up walls on the ink, and we thought once we have this set of actions, okay, well, what type of character would best express these in a game? And that's how we eventually arrived at, well, I guess a squid shoots ink, and a squid could perform these actions. And then once we have that character set down, we can place the character in a world and begin to build the world around it.
I would like to ask Mr. Sato about the complexities of using ink as a projectile and what that presented to your programming team.
I guess that that's a good point. We knew that if we were to just bring ink as your projectile, the way it operates in the real world, into the game and make that your projectile, it wouldn't have quite the feel we were looking for it. I mean, ink, when you shoot it through the air, has a certain arc that it's going to follow, and a certain way it will splash against objects that it hits. And so we really based a lot of our calculations and our work on creating something that might not be the exact way ink in the real world will behave, but will both give you the gameplay element of having your ink go where you want it to, being able to accurately hit objects in the game, while still having the feeling that that is ink. And I think through all of our work and calculations, that was something we were able to arrive at. And I think it's important that we also have the ability to sink into your ink, use it to climb various surfaces, and that ink is not just a projectile to attack enemies with. So giving ink all of these different capabilities in the game was another thing that we really had to spend time working on.
Do you guys still order calamari at a restaurant when you go to go eat, or do you have more sensitivity to the squid?
Well, it is true that the squids are our very good friends, but I am somebody who has really enjoyed eating squid for a long time, and after spending this much time thinking about squids, I find myself in the supermarket buying squid more than ever. It's probably a more popular ingredient in Japan than in other places. So it's something I just find myself eating all the time now.
The squid industry thanks Splatoon. That's wonderful. Now, I have to admit, when I first saw Splatoon, I thought it was just going to be a kid's game. And it ended up being our favorite shooter of that year. And we love it. It's amazing. But now you have the chance to introduce Splatoon to a whole new audience, because we know that the Switch is a very different platform than the Wii U. It's very, very successful already. And is there a responsibility to kind of reintroduce the franchise to new players?
Well, I think I'll start, talking about our thinking for Splatoon 1. We didn't go about it thinking we want to make a game for this particular segment of users, or for the casual audience, or the more hardcore audience, but instead, kind of undertook the challenge of making a game that would be enjoyable by as many of those, segments as possible. So something the casual player would enjoy, but also the more serious game fan. And, I think that actually holds true for the artwork as well. We were trying to make an artwork that would be well received by as many people as possible, and not to, create an artwork that would turn off a particular group of people. And so, from that standpoint, it may appear occasionally with the bright colors and whatnot that, it could be received in that first blush as a kid's game. But, we on the development team are pretty serious gamers ourselves, and really actually, stake our lives on our identity as gamers. And so, we want to bring that type of sensibility to the games we make as well. So, this kind of translated into wanting to make the game as enjoyable for as many people as possible, but also making sure it was really well made and that, people like ourselves could get a lot out of it. And in taking on that challenge, that was something that we struggled with and wanted to make sure we were going to be able to do. But, seeing how long people have continued to play the original Splatoon and how much they've supported it has kind of convinced us that we were heading in the right direction. And then I think the challenge for Splatoon 2 this time around has been, okay, how do we, make a game that will pull in some of those people who didn't join, the fun for Splatoon 1 on Wii U, while also continuing to make a game that will satisfy the desires of the now experienced Splatoon player. And one way of illustrating that is the special weapons in Splatoon 2. This time around, they're all new. There isn't one returning from Splatoon 1. So they'll, of course, be new for the new player, but they'll also be something fresh for the returning player to see.
One thing that I was really appreciative of the first game was its single-player campaign. I actually thought it was pretty fun just to go off and be on my own and get through all of the puzzles that you created for us. Is that carried over, or is there a new single-player sort of experience in Splatoon 2?
Yes, the single-player mode is definitely returning, and I feel that we've actually upgraded it for Splatoon 2. And I agree with you. When we created Splatoon 1, we realized there would be some users who aren't used to multiplayer games and the sort of chaotic action that they bring, and we created the single-player mode as, a sort of a tutorial of sorts, but also just, a quiet space to sort of learn the basics that you would, later need for multiplayer.
Yeah. It's very smart.
So, this time around with the single-player mode in Splatoon 2, you'll be able to use a variety of weapons in each of the stages. And, the weapons really are one of the features of Splatoon, and they all have, various characteristics and things to learn about them. So now you can take all of those weapons into all of the stages of the single-player mode and, take your time learning all their characteristics.
I can't wait to explore these new weapons, but I also want to know, about some of the other features that are brand new in Splatoon 2. What have we never seen in Splatoon before?
Well, the multiplayer mode in Splatoon, as in Splatoon 1, was very core to the experience, and that continues in Splatoon 2. But we've done things, as Mr. Sato mentioned previously, like recreating all the special weapons to, add a sense of freshness back into the game. And, while almost all of the stages in Splatoon 2, the multiplayer stages, are new, we have included, a portion of the stages from the previous game, but we've added new elements into those and really wanted to kind of rethink those returning stages from the ground up. So players who experience those stages where they'll see the same name may find that there's an entirely different way to play them. And, one other important new feature joining Splatoon 2 is Salmon Run. So, occasionally during multiplayer, although it's a competitive game mode, you'll occasionally cooperate with your teammates, and this is a mode that emphasizes that cooperation. And, the inspiration for this type of mode was, with the Nintendo Switch, you can have local play, offline play, and, when you're not able to get, the 8 people together for a full multiplayer match, we wanted to create a mode you could play locally with a smaller number of people, but, that being the inspiration for the mode, we also wanted to make sure it was available online as well. So Salmon Run is a mode that introduces you to a new type of creature called the salmonids that appear out of the sea and attack you in wave after wave. It's fairly intense. And this is really a mode that I think the more you cooperate and organize among the 4 of you, the better. Based on what's happening in the map, you'll have various signals assigned to the plus control pad that you can use to call your friends. So you'll have come on, or over here when action is going on, you want to direct them to particular enemies. But if you get done in and find yourself floating around in a little floating ring, which happens to you when you get taken out, you can call your friends by pressing one of the direction pads to say help, and they can come to your help, shoot you with ink to get you back on your feet, and you can continue the fight. And again, like you mentioned, with the look of Splatoon, this game, this game mode may look really fun and inviting, have a sort of a pop sensibility to it, but when you get in there, you'll realize it's actually quite difficult. So this is something we're hoping that advanced players in particular will really enjoy.
Oh, I welcome that challenge.
そのチャレンジが嬉しいですね。
I want to talk about that challenge here for a second. Who's the better player out of you two in Splatoon?
I may, in the organization, I may have, the higher job title, but I'm afraid Mr. Sato has put in the long hours necessary, and he's better.
Yeah, I could tell he's very casual back there. He looks like the better player.
冷静に自信を持っている人物ですねと。
彼は意外と対戦になると。
He looks that way now, but wait until you see him play multiplayer.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I want to talk a little bit about the way that Nintendo would approve a project like Splatoon. Was this something where the lead person or a lead team was walking along the street and saw a puddle somewhere and said, wait, what if we played with physics like this and made how did that come together? How did the idea come together?
I'll actually start by answering your second question you asked first about the inspiration, that original idea. And that actually came from a prototype that Mr. Sato made himself. And so, for a good while, he had an idea that splashing ink around and using it, in a team battle where you're competing for turf would be fun, but we didn't know exactly how to go about realizing that, making that into, an actual game. So Mr. Sato actually was involved in the graphics programming for New Super Mario Bros. U for the Wii U, and one of the things he did there was to create shadows and sort of shade that goes over the levels. And in doing that work, he thought, I wonder if I can use this for anything else. With kind of linking up with that previous story about Mr. Sato, it just so happened that as his project wrapped up, a number of other projects within Nintendo were wrapping up as well, and so we had a number of people who didn't have a new project they were working on, and we gathered those people together, and using the prototype that he had come up with, decided to start a sort of trial and error process. And the goal wasn't to start out to make a new franchise, but at first to just say, is there anything fun that we can do with this idea? In that experience of making New Super Mario Bros. U and using the graphics shading, during that experience he thought, well, maybe I'm onto something here. And after that project ended, he was called to work with Mr. Nogami to create some new type of gameplay, and that was the point at which he was able to sort of firm up this prototype and say, well, maybe we can actually use this in some type of new project. So at the time, the prototype was in a state that the characters were basically what we consider to be blocks of white and black tofu. They were just square shaped. But even in that simple format, they shot their own color of ink. We were able to get 8 people on a network playing, and we discovered that even in this simple format, playing in this way was actually really fun.
I would like to play that game. I would like to play the tofu game.
Tofu gameは遊びたいですね。And after we had sort of gotten the prototype to that state, we had the confidence to show it to my direct supervisor, Mr. Iguchi, and then eventually to Mr. Miyamoto. We made a presentation to them of our idea, and it was approved.
That's fantastic. Okay, well, we've seen the Inklings in Super Mario Kart, and we've seen Super Mario Sunshine. How many times have people asked you if Mario from Super Mario Sunshine will appear in Splatoon? You can have that one for free.
そのアイディアはタダであげます。そうですね、わかりました。大丈夫です。Well, the Inkling world, the world of Splatoon, I should say, is a world in which there are various creatures existing, but in this world, the Inkling race has, over the course of 12,000 years, through this evolutionary process, become the most advanced and dominant life form in the world. And in this world, well, these may be getting into mysterious areas of the story. It seems that they've discovered leftovers from human society, perhaps some remnants of technology and civilization, and are copying that, bringing it into their society. And so this is all just a way of saying that in their excavations, if they ever uncover a Mario amiibo, for example, there may be a possibility of what you're talking about.
Oh my goodness. Oh, fantastic. Very good hint. Let me ask you a little bit about the makeup of the Splatoon team. I want to get to know a little bit about you personally. Do you all go out for dinners together to celebrate? Do you all hang out together as friends and compete against each other, maybe in other video games?
もちろんあります。
Yeah, I mean, in addition to being game developers ourselves, I think we've got a group of people who are basically gamers as well. He's actually pretty stuck on Mario Kart right now.
他のスタッフは家でもっとで
Yeah, I mean, we have people on our team who are definitely into other shooting games they play at home. RPGs are popular, and definitely there have been times where it's like, okay, we're gonna get home from work, 9 o'clock, everybody, let's group up. We're gonna do this, from home. So that has definitely happened.
僕はもう30
Yeah, I mean, I have probably 30 years as a gamer myself, and actually, I really like fighting games. And if I were to try and add up all the hours I spent playing like games like Virtua Fighter, or Street Fighter 2, I would have a lot of trouble doing that. Now, I don't want to give the mistaken impression that all we do is play games.
No.
We also do know how to have a good time. We go out to dinner with each other. There have been times we've gone over to each other's houses for dinner, and we really enjoy that type of thing. And both of us are married, and we want to make sure that we reserve time for pencil in our families on the weekends. Well, I shouldn't say pencil in because we do really like spending time with them, but yes. But that said, my wife is also a fairly dedicated Splatoon player herself, and there were many times when at home the two of us would be sitting and playing Splatoon as a way of spending time together.
That's wonderful. There haven't been that many sort of new franchises with totally brand new characters that have come up from Nintendo. There aren't that many apart from the cores, the Donkey Kongs and the Metroids and the Marios. How does that feel when you do that? When you come out with a game as a team and that's never been done before, how does that feel? How does it make you all feel?
まず新しいゲームを作ろうということは
Well, I think at Nintendo we always are trying to, make new games that we feel are new. But as I mentioned previously, we don't start that process from creating characters, but rather finding gameplay that we think is fun first. This means that we didn't fully cross out, the idea of using a Mario art style when we were setting out to make Splatoon. Although, we did want to try and avoid Mario Center. But in the process of coming up with type of gameplay we felt was, really new, we also felt that it deserved and was maybe best suited, best served by an art style and a look that was also created from the ground up. And it's not just that we had new gameplay, so we have to have new artwork for this, but rather first that gameplay layer was set down, and then we thought what character would best serve that. The squid. And after creating the squid as a new character, then with both this new gameplay and the squid character being decided, it just so happened that this new art style were the best fit for those two things.
今ベースされてる
I think the same could be said about ARMS.
Yeah.
They started with gameplay. What kind of gameplay would be fun, and they found this new punching action, and then what type of characters, what type of world would this gameplay take place in? And you see the type of look that game has become.
Yeah, I love ARMS.
なので今後も新しい
So when we come up with new gameplay, a new game idea, if in the course of creating that play we feel that it's best served by a new art style, that's the art style we'll have. But if in the course of creating that play we feel that this is really shaping up to be a Mario game, it will become a Mario game. If this is seeming more like a Zelda game, then it will become a Zelda game.
That seems to be the difference at Nintendo. It seems to be experience first and then story and art second.
なので、できるだけ僕たちはまずゲームプレイを作って
I think that's right. And if anything, I hope that the support and the reaction we've gotten from the fans for the new ideas in Splatoon, if anything, has made it easier for the expression of new ideas and new franchises to take hold in Nintendo.
Well, that's what I wanted to say to you, is that we as Nintendo fans are very grateful for the new characters that are coming out of Nintendo. And it's really fun to find these new franchises. So thank you both.
今後だからそういったその任天堂の
And that's true. If the fans continue to support the creation of new series and new characters like this, we'll continue to work hard to meet those demands.
That's wonderful.